Ever pondered why the United States bought Alaska from Russia? It's a question that has intrigued historians and curious minds alike for generations. The purchase, often shrouded in mystery and speculation, is a fascinating tale of negotiation, diplomacy, and strategic foresight. It involves a rich tapestry of events that stretches far beyond the simple exchange of gold for land. So let's take a moment, buckle up, and prepare to delve into the annals of history. Join us on a journey back in time to uncover the real story behind this intriguing transaction. It all started in the 18th century. Russian explorers, driven by the allure of new lands and untapped resources, began their journey into the far reaches of the North Pacific. Their destination was the rugged and icy landscapes of what is now known as Alaska. Upon their arrival, they encountered a multitude of indigenous tribes, each with their own unique cultures, traditions, and ways of life. Despite the harsh weather and challenging living conditions, these indigenous peoples had thrived in the region for centuries, showcasing an admirable resilience and adaptability. As the Russians began to interact with the natives, they saw an opportunity in the rich fur resources that Alaska had to offer. The sea otter in particular was a lucrative source of fur and quickly became the backbone of the Russian fur trade. This trade brought substantial wealth to the Russian Empire, leading to the establishment of Russian America. The indigenous people of Alaska, on the other hand, found themselves caught in the middle of this booming fur trade. Some benefited from the influx of foreign goods, while others struggled under the weight of new diseases and cultural upheaval. The Russian presence in Alaska continued to grow, with settlements spreading across the region. They built forts, churches, and trading posts marking their claim on the territory. The most significant of these was the establishment of Novo-Arkhangelsk, or New Archangel, which served as the capital of Russian America and is now known as Sitka. However, maintaining these settlements and the fur trade was a costly affair. The region's remote location, coupled with its harsh climate, made it difficult for the Russians to sustain their operations. The cost of supply and maintenance far outweighed the profits from the fur trade. As the 18th century gave way to the 19th, the Russian Empire found itself in a precarious financial situation. As time went on, Russia began to see Alaska more as a liability than an asset. Meanwhile, the young United States had its eyes on the horizon. The mid-19th century was an era of rapid expansion and growth for the United States. The young nation was brimming with a sense of ambition and opportunity, a spirit captured in the concept of manifest destiny. This idea, deeply embedded in the American psyche, held that the United States was destined, by God, by history, or by nature, to expand across the North American continent, spreading its form of democracy and freedom. Manifest destiny was more than just an idea, it was a force that drove policy and action. It played a crucial role in the westward expansion of the United States, fueling the push into territories like Oregon and California. It was a belief that not only justified but also propelled the acquisition of new lands. But the American gaze was not limited to the continental landscape. The nation's leaders saw potential in far-off places too. The United States was eager to establish itself as a global power, and acquiring territories beyond its immediate borders was a strategic way to do so. Alaska, a vast and resource-rich land, was one such territory. At the time, it was a remote and largely unexplored region under the control of the Russian Empire, but to the American leadership, Alaska was more than just a piece of land. It was a symbol of potential and opportunity, a chance to expand the nation's reach and influence. The acquisition of Alaska was not without its critics. Some questioned the wisdom of purchasing a distant, frozen wilderness, but the expansionist mindset prevailed. The American leaders saw in Alaska what they had seen in the West: a frontier to be tamed, a land to be cultivated, and a wealth of resources to be harnessed. In the grand scheme of manifest destiny, Alaska was the next logical step. The United States was not just growing, it was stretching, reaching out to encompass new lands and possibilities. And so, amid a whirlwind of ambition and optimism, Alaska appeared on its radar. The United States was growing, and Alaska appeared on its radar. In 1867, an opportunity presented itself. A chance for expansion, a chance for growth, and a chance to acquire what would later be known as Seward's icebox. The man at the helm of this venture was none other than William H. Seward, the Secretary of State at the time. Seward was a man of vision, who saw the potential in this barren, icy land. He believed that Alaska could be a valuable asset, a belief that was not shared by everyone. Negotiations for the Alaska Purchase were initiated with the Russian government. It was a delicate dance of diplomacy, with both sides keen on striking the best deal. The Russians were eager to sell, fearing that they might lose Alaska without compensation in a future conflict. For the Americans, it was about expansion and potential resources. The bargaining chips were on the table, and the stakes were high. After a flurry of back and forth, a price was finally agreed upon. For the sum of $7.2 million, Russia agreed to sell Alaska to the United States. To put it into perspective, that's roughly 2 cents per acre, a true bargain by any standard. But this was not just a simple transaction. It was a deal that would shape the future of America. It was a deal that would add more than 600,000 square miles to the United States, a vast expanse of wilderness rich in resources. Yet, the decision was not met with universal approval. Critics dubbed the purchase as Seward's Folly, questioning the wisdom of buying a frozen wasteland. Little did they know this frozen wasteland was a treasure trove waiting to be discovered. This was a monumental moment, a turning point in American history. It was a bold move, a gamble that would eventually pay off. All it took was a vision, a leap of faith, and $7.2 million. And thus, the United States became the owner of Alaska. But not everyone was thrilled. Weighing the benefits and the costs, the controversy of the decision continued to echo in the halls of American politics. But as we know now, it was a deal well worth making. The purchase of Alaska was not immediately celebrated. Now that might come as a surprise to some, but it's true. The news of the purchase was met with a mix of surprise, disbelief, and in some quarters, downright ridicule. Many Americans during that time saw it as a wasteful expenditure, a folly of Secretary of State William Seward, who was instrumental in sealing the deal. Hence the moniker Seward's Folly came into being. This vast expanse of land stretching over 600,000 square miles was seen as nothing more than a barren, icy wilderness. The critics didn't hold back. They called it Seward's Icebox, President Johnson's Polar Bear Garden, among other unflattering names. The common sentiment was that the United States had squandered millions on a frozen, desolate land that was of no apparent use. However, the tide of public opinion began to change towards the end of the 19th century. The discovery of gold in the Yukon region in 1896 sparked a gold rush that attracted tens of thousands of prospectors to the region. The worthless land was suddenly teeming with potential and opportunity. Alaska, previously seen as a folly, was now viewed as a land of immense wealth and promise, but the surprises didn't stop there. The 20th century ushered in the discovery of another precious resource, oil. The discovery of massive oil reserves in places like Prudhoe Bay further solidified Alaska's economic potential. The once mocked and ridiculed purchase was now contributing significantly to the nation's economy. The critics of the past were silenced. The folly had turned into a fortune. The icebox was now a treasure chest. The Polar Bear Garden was now a gold mine. Indeed, the purchase of Alaska turned out to be one of the most astute acquisitions in the history of the United States. It is a testament to the foresight of those who saw beyond the immediate and recognized the long-term potential of this vast, beautiful land. Over time, the value of Alaska became indisputable. So, why did the US buy Alaska from Russia? Well, let's take a moment to revisit the core motives we've explored today. Firstly, we looked at Russia's dire financial situation. Pressed by the burden of debt and a struggling economy, selling Alaska appeared as a viable option to alleviate some of their economic hardships. This was a crucial factor that set the stage for the negotiation. Then, we delved into the American mindset of the mid-19th century. The concept of manifest destiny, the belief that American expansion across the continent was not just inevitable but divinely ordained, was a driving force behind the decision. America was eager to expand its borders, and Alaska was a prime piece of real estate. We also shed light on the negotiation process, a dance of diplomacy and financial wrangling. Despite initial hesitations, the American government, led by Secretary of State William H. Seward, eventually struck a deal to purchase Alaska for $7,200,000. Lastly, we saw how the eventual realization of Alaska's vast resources, including gold, oil, and seafood, transformed this perceived folly into a brilliant investment. Today, Alaska's value far exceeds what was initially paid, proving the foresight of those involved in this historical transaction. And that, dear viewers, is the real reason why the United States bought Alaska from Russia.